Hey guys, it's Connor, and how you doing? Where you been? How's your mom? Recently, I've been putting a lot of hours into a just recently updated and patched game. So if you didn't know, Cyberpunk 2077, developed by CD Projekt Red, has had a bit of a resurgence lately due to the popularity and critical reception of the recently released Netflix anime, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, which, like the title suggests, takes place within the video game setting Night City. The release of the anime also coincided with CD Projekt Red's latest 1.6 patch for the game, also being called the Edgerunners update. Now, I put out a Cyberpunk video a while back, a few months back actually, after they dropped the 1.5 next-gen patch meant for current consoles, along with describing my issues with the game at large that do still remain despite this latest patch. Now, I won't linger too long on my issues with the game. If you want to hear a much more in-depth explanation about my complaints, I've left a link to the older video in the description. In brief though, my main gripes and critique of Cyberpunk 2077 was and still is that despite its main story and optional side quests being well written, with some really great notable character work being done with, somebody like Johnny Silverhand, for example, still, the lack of player agency you have as V in the world of Cyberpunk 2077 remains extremely disappointing when comparing to CD Projekt Red's magnum opus, The Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. Now, I still hold the opinion that The Witcher 3, which was released in 2015, mind you, is the gold industry standard for a modern AAA WRPG, and still, in my opinion, has yet to be topped. Call me naive, right? But I would have assumed that the same level of care and craft would have gone into Cyberpunk 2077, but given the circumstances of that game's development cycle and all the drama that entails with that, which have been covered at length and discussed to death, I'll cut them some slack in that regard. Still, even while playing now, it's very hard to not be thinking about those things in the back of my head. Now being about 32 hours into my Corpo life path run, but I digress. And frankly, even with some of some of Cyberpunk's inherent flaws and issues still proudly displaying themselves when I'm playing, I really have been enjoying my time with this game again, and it's been really fun. I've been sinking a ton of hours into it. Any free moment I have, I've been going back and just playing and sinking more hours and exploring Night City. Originally, I did buy the PS4 physical edition at release and somehow held on to it after all this time. My first playthrough was picking the Street Kid life path, and honestly, sort of following my first critique about like how the player agency and the decisions you make really don't matter. The life paths don't really matter in this game, aside from giving V a different backstory and some different flavor dialogue and conversations with other characters. In that first PS4 run back in 2020, I sunk about like 50 hours into the first run before I had to drop it due to the extremely poor performance and optimization for PS4 and Xbox One. However, that doesn't seem to be an issue at all with this new patch, which I honestly am kind of shocked about, because before this 1.6 patch, in a normal play session, my game would have hard crashed and rebooted at least once, maybe every hour and a half. But now this game is running fairly smoothly, and I have yet to experience a crash or any game-breaking bugs. I will say, though, that yes, there still is some pop-in and some low-res textures, but compared to a few months ago, I will take the minor issues over the original game's launch date. But since starting this new playthrough, I wanted to make a video for what I wanted to see in a future Cyberpunk entry, sequel, trilogy, whatever it may be from CDPR, since I feel like everyone in the mamas have discussed and dissected this game to the fullest extent that you can. And frankly, I'm kind of sick of just seeing negative content on my timeline lately, so let's get into it. Let's discuss what I want for the future of Cyberpunk. Now, for my first want, I think it kind of goes without saying what I said at the start of the video with my gripes. I want a future sequel to this game with a narrative that has a complex and layered sort of decision and impact system with your choices like The Witcher 3 did. Like I said, don't get me wrong, there is some really great writing within Cyberpunk, but it severely lacks in allowing the player to have true agency, in allowing to make the decisions that they want, right? Cyberpunk shares sort of the same issues that, funny enough, the rebooted Deus Ex series has, where everything basically boils down to like 1, 2, or maybe even 3 choices. Whereas compared to The Witcher 3, there was multiple upon multiple choices that would affect various different outcomes in your game, whether that would have been the main quest, other side quests, the actual world being impacted, right? So let me try and think of a better Cyberpunk example, okay? Like, recently I just did this quest line within the game that allows you to have the option of either letting a rival gang who betrayed you walk away alive, or you can put some hot lead in them, right? And no matter what option you choose, nothing substantial comes from those decisions. If you decide to kill them, literally nobody mentions it, that you killed some of the most important gang leaders in the world of Night City, right? And especially within that gang structure, nobody really says anything. Other members of the gang don't even attack you on sight for what you did. Not even really a line of dialogue from a random NPC in that specific area of the map saying, hey, did you hear so-and-so killed so-and-so, right? If this is what I wanted, killing those leaders would have had a much more significant effect on the rest of my playthrough, meaning that possibly that gang is actively looking for me when I'm in that area, right? They heard I'm in the area on my motorcycle, they're gunning for me, right? People referencing the decision in conversation, whether it be like the fixers or other gangs within the world, right? Possibly affecting the outcome of related quests, etc., so on and so forth. That is a big want for me personally. And like I said, it kind of sucks that, you know, you go from Witcher 3 that everybody congratulated you for and was critically well received because of the amount of decisions that affected outcomes in quests and in the world in general, and you not being able to do that and replicate it in this big, huge new franchise for you guys. But I digress. Next, my big want. I definitely want, and they definitely need, right? At least a few different vehicles that could be customized by V himself or herself. I think that it's a bit ridiculous that of the many purchasable like vehicles and rides that you can get in Cyberpunk, that you can't at least change the paint job or the rims or the inside interior color, you know, at all. You can't do any of that. All you can do is just purchase it, because technically, I guess it's supposed to be a unique vehicle that isn't meant for customization. And while I do think that there is still room to have that, I would like at least some base vehicles that you can purchase, that you can go to a garage for and customize, you know, not, to like, oh, we're going to make sure that there's dice in the window. It's like, no, just let me change the paint. Let me add some neon here and there, you know, so on and so forth. And at least with this 1.6 update, they did add the option of adding neon rims to your motorcycles. So I guess there's that. I'm not saying every one of those vehicles should be customizable, given that there are some unique ones, like I said, but just let me make my own sick-ass Cyberpunk ride. I found that very disappointing in the game, because there's just so many different purchasable vehicles, and they just expect you to just buy those, even though, like, through the game, you'll end up, probably at the end of the game, depending on if you do all the quests and the side quests, you'll end up with like 4 or 5, unique vehicles that you can have. So, like, what's really the incentive there when purchasing a vehicle, other than just like, hey, this looks cool? I would also like them to maybe add something there of like, hey, these cars are going to do a lot better in street races, or hey, these cars are going to be a lot better for like stealth operations, right? Maybe give them even further class distinctions, something like that. My third want is a common complaint about the game, in that while there are some really cool cyberware options that you can purchase or apply to your character at your local Ripper dock, there just isn't enough unique gameplay changing ones that are worthwhile. I mean, after you get the gorilla arms, the mantis arms, or the rocket arms, right, and the reinforced legs to acquire a double jump, or the one where you hold down and you do a supercharged jump, the rest of the cyberware I could take or leave, given that it is mainly for stat boosting or boosting your cyber deck, right, which is where you do all of your quick hack options. I really hope with the sequel they go crazy with this, as they can have some really nuts ideas come to life in a sequel to this game that allow the player to approach combat encounters with more variety instead of just either stealthing or going in guns blazing. I mean, shit, dude, like, they could really do some cool stuff, especially like if they go back and do the original idea that they wanted with the mantis arms. That would be really cool. You know, let me have like feet with, I don't know, rocket boosters in it or something. You know, go nuts, go crazy. Allow your guys' imagination to really run wild, because while I do enjoy the core gameplay a lot to sort of keep me going through combat encounters in general, I do think the gunplay is pretty fun. I think a lot of the weapons are pretty unique. It's just sad that in, you know, this big, huge Cyberpunk game where, you know, a lot of the focus is like on losing yourself because of installing too much cyberware, or like all these characters have really cool, unique cyberware that makes them unique and has given them a name within the world of Night City. There's not a ton of that with this game, right? Like, along with, like, why can't I make my character look more robot-y, right? Like, why can't I give him like full robot parts, you know, make him look like a Maelstrom full-on robot man? I would like that too. I would like that in the customization. But another thing I want, keeping in line with the cyberware, for the environmental quick hacking, I want those options greatly expanded upon and revamped. Like, how come I can't watchdog one of these encounters, meaning I'm sitting across the street linked into the nearest camera, and from there I'm able to wreak havoc by messing with the environment entirely, and even in some cases not necessarily needing to go into a building to complete a gig, a side job, or, you know, a main quest line. I think that would be really cool, and it would really fit with the world, right? Because as of right now, sure, you can distract an enemy by making a vending machine malfunction, or shutting down cameras and turrets, and shutting on and off TVs, but there's just not enough, man. You know, like, now that I'm thinking about this might be a situation where I should say, please design these levels with an expanded quick hacking arsenal in mind. But they need to add a little bit more of that, because I find myself not even necessarily needing the quick hack options right away, right? Because most of the time I can just handle combat encounters by either, like I said in the beginning, stealthing or going in guns blazing. You don't really need the quick hack options aside from like turning off cameras or like rebooting the optics, right? The vision of an enemy in front of you so they don't see you as you sort of like stealth on by. I think they could really do some unique stuff. I mean, they already have some cool stuff in there, right? There is a, you know, a really cool one, you know, like there's the overheat, the burnt synapses ones, right? The ones that really affect like the cyberware and the people that you're attacking, right? There's a detonate grenade one. Like, lean into a bit more of those. Give me a bit more wild one of those. Another big want I think that should be implemented is some kind of faction system or individual alliance system for the gangs and fixers running around Night City. Throughout the game, you meet various groups spread across the map. Each gang and fixer have their own territories that are supposed to sort of fit the environment they're placed in, along with sort of the aesthetics that they visually give the characters. Now, I do think this is one of the weaker aspects of the game, especially given that you run into these gangs constantly while exploring Night City, and given if you're reading those shard flavor text entries that you can pick up all throughout the world. Fixers and gangs are very, very, very important to the criminal element within the city. It's integral, honestly, and you wouldn't really know that unless you picked up those shards and read them, or, you know, picked up on little tiny dialogue lines said by like random NPCs in the world, because some of the stuff these gangs are doing in these shard entries are straight up horrific and awful. You know, you got people stealing kidneys, stealing cyberware from people. You got, you know, gangs just like chopping people up. You have fixers just stabbing other mercs in the back. Like, it's really great. It makes for some pretty good flavor text, like I've said. But granted, what I'm asking for is probably a lot of work for CD Projekt Red to do. But given each gang faction is so important, you know, give them their own quest lines, their own allegiance quest line, right? And if you choose one of them and you have the option of joining up with one of them, you know, you get different perks, cyberware, weapons, clothing, vehicles, etc., so on and so forth. Like, it kind of writes out itself. And granted, I do think that at some point they did plan on doing this, especially if you were paying attention to sort of the data mining surrounding this game back a couple months ago, where people were like, oh, they're going to add a lot of the stuff that I basically said I wanted in this video, right? Oh, gang factions, customization for the vehicles, you know, underground sections, so on and so forth. Obviously, none of that has happened, but I feel like this is something that wouldn't take as much work as like implementing entirely new different sections of the game, areas of the game, you know, the customization for vehicles, so on and so forth. Like, a lot of that groundwork for the gang faction stuff is kind of already there. Another option that I want, once again, similar to the vehicle customization, is allow me some base weapons that I can continually upgrade and customize on my own, right? Like, allow me to choose the paint, right? Allow me to choose the different parts that go into my gun so I can even further control, like, all right, do I want critical damage? Do I want electrical damage? Do I want acid, fire, you know, yada, yada. Right? Allow me to do that. Like I said, there's a ton of different weapons in the world of Cyberpunk. Legendary ones that you pick up that are epic and iconic, right? That belong to other famous people within the world of Night City. Allow me some base ones, some basic ones that I can just, you know, fuck around with and mess around with and make them the way that I want. Because, you know, once you get a couple of those iconic and rare ones, you're really never going back to sort of these base weapons that they want you to try. And I actually like that in the 1.6 patch they have added a couple of new different weapon types that are pretty fun to use. I like them for right now. I don't really have any real complaints. I like the new like single shot assault rifle they've added. That's pretty fun. It's a pretty good option if you don't want a straight up sniper rifle. I've been using katanas a lot lately too. That's a really fun route to choose. You know, put some more dope-ass swords in there. That would be really cool as well. Overall, I am really enjoying my time with Cyberpunk. And I have really been enjoying my time with Cyberpunk now for 30-plus hours. And like we've said, this is just a quick little fun video that I wanted to do about the positive time that I'm having with this game. And I want that to continue because I want this franchise to continue going on and continuing to do bigger and better things, because there's not a ton of sci-fi games really in the market, and there's even less big huge sci-fi RPGs that are available on the market. And this is kind of everything that you would want if you're similar to me, right? It's a huge, beautiful, gorgeous world that is just really fun to explore. Visually, the art team just goes out of their way to put their whole foot in this and really do a great job. And I want more. I really do want more in general. And maybe that's my last want. I want more, because to me, honestly, they had a really good base game, really good bones for the first Cyberpunk entry, but you know, like I've said through all these wants, there are certain mechanics and systems that clearly were not as fleshed out as other systems were, either because they had to get cut for time or just to release the damn game because the CDPR executives and higher ups wanted to push it out. It really sucks, because I wonder what this game would have looked like in, like, I don't know, if it came out in 2022 or 2023 as opposed to 2020, 2021 when it came out. But aside from that, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Very quick little fun video that I put together. I've been working on this big DC video for a while now. I'm hoping to get that out before Black Adam. and then do a Black Adam review. I just keep getting copyright strikes with this very long WB video. So be on the lookout for that. I'm hoping to put that up within the next like week or two. I have to rework it a little bit with the editing because now I have to, switch some clips around. But be on the lookout for that. Like, comment, subscribe down below. Let me know what you like, what you didn't like. This is still a very young channel, very new channel, and I'm happy to take any sort of critiques and criticisms people have in order to keep making good content. So if nothing else is to be said, keep on keeping on and stay groovy.